health. When Das Kapital was published, we celebrated. But Engels had to give us some money so we could go to the pawn shop and retrieve our linen and dishes for the dinner. Engels, a saint. There's no other word for him. When they cut off our water, our gas, and the house was dark, very cold, our spirits low. Engels paid the bills. His father owned factories in Manchester. Yes, capitalism saved us. He didn't always understand our needs. We had no money for groceries. And he would send us crates of wine. One Christmas, when we had no means to buy a Weihnachtsbaum, a Christmas tree, Engels arrived with 6 bottles of champagne. So we imagined a tree. Formed a circle around it. Drank champagne and sang Christmas songs. Tannenbaum. Oh, Tannenbaum. I knew what my revolutionary friends were thinking. Marx, the atheist, with a Christmas tree. Yes, I did describe religion as the opium of the people. But no one has ever paid attention to the full passage. Listen, wait. Ah, there it is. I have it. Religion is the sigh of the oppressed creature. The heart of a heartless world. The soul of soulless conditions. It is the opium of the people. True, opium is no solution, but it may be necessary to relieve pain. Don't I know that from my boils? And doesn't the world have a terrible case of boils? I keep thinking of Jenny. How she packed all our possessions and brought our 2 girls, Jennifer and Laura, across the Channel to London. And then gave birth 3 times in our miserable, cold flat. on Dean Street. Nursed those babies and tried to keep them warm. And saw them die one by one. Guido, he had not even begun to walk. And Francesca, she was 1 year old. I had to borrow £3 to pay for a coffin. A Shamush, he lived for 8 years. But something was wrong from the start. He had a large, handsome head. But the rest of him never grew. The night he died, we all slept on the floor around his body until the morning came. When Eleanor was born, we were fearful. But she was a tough little thing. It was good she had 2 older sisters. They had barely survived themselves. Jensen was born in Paris. Paris is marvelous for lovers. But not for children. Laura, our second, was born in Brussels. No one should be born in Brussels. In London, we had no money. But we always had Sunday picnics. A father is not supposed to have favorites among his children. But Eleanor. I would say to Jenny, Eleanor is a strange child. And Jenny would reply, you expect the children of Karl Marx to be normal? Eleanor was the youngest, the brightest. Imagine a revolutionary at the age of 8. Sorry, Jenny. That's how old she was. In 1863. Poland was in rebellion against Russian rule. And Tussie wrote a letter. That's what we called her, Tussie. She wrote to Engels about those brave little fellows in Poland, as she called them. When she was 9, get this, when she was 9, she sent a letter to America. Advice to President Lincoln. Telling him how to win the war against the Confederacy. She played chess with me when she was 10. And I could not easily defeat her. At 15, she suddenly became furious against the law about observing the Lord's Day. no activity on Sunday was permitted. So she organized Sunday evenings for the people at St. Martin's Hall. Brought musicians there to play Handel, Mozart, and Beethoven. The hall was packed. 2,000 people. It was illegal. But no one was arrested. A lesson. If you're going to break the law, do it with 2,000 people. And Mozart. I used to read Shakespeare and Dante and Aeschylus aloud to her and her sisters, which she loved. Her room was a Shakespeare museum. She memorized Romeo and Juliet and insisted that I read over and over those lines of Romeo when he sees Juliet for the first time. The brightness of her cheek would shame those stars. At daylight doth a lamp. Her eyes in heaven would through the arid region stream so bright that birds would sing and think it were not night. Tussie was not easy to live with. Oh no. Do you know how embarrassing it is to have a child who finds flaws in your reasoning? She would argue with me about my writings. For instance, my essay on the Jewish question. Not easy to understand, I admit. Well, Eleanor read it and immediately challenged me. Why do you single out the Jews? She said. I tried to explain. I wasn't singling out the Jews. Her answer was to start wearing a Jewish star. I'm a Jew, she announced. What can I say? I shrugged my shoulders. And Eleanor said, that's a very Jewish gesture. She could be very annoying. Tussie knew my father had converted to Christianity. It was not practical to be a Jew in Germany. Is it ever practical to be a Jew anywhere? He had me baptized at the age of 8. This fact intrigued Eleanor. She asked, "More?" The family called me More because of my darker complexion. I know you were baptized. But first, you were circumcised, weren't you? Nothing embarrassed that girl. At such times, she was impossible. Listen to this. Alongside her Jewish star, she wore a crucifix. No, she was not enamored of Christianity, but of the Irish and their rebellion against England. She learned about the Irish struggle from Lizzie Burns, Engels' love. Lizzie was a mill girl and could not read. Engels spoke 9 languages. You might think this would make it hard for them to communicate. But they loved one another. Lizzie was active in the Irish movement. Tussie would visit, and the two of them would sit on the floor and drink wine together. And sing Irish songs until they fell asleep. There was that terrible night. The night the English government hanged 2 young Irishmen right there in Soho, with a drunken crowd cheering. Those genteel English with their afternoon tea and their public hangings. I understand you don't hang people anymore. Only gas them or inject poison into their veins, or use electricity to burn them to death. Much more civilized. Yes. They hanged 2 young Irishmen for wanting freedom from England. Eleanor wept and wept. I would say to her, Tussie, you don't have to get involved so soon with the horrors of the world. You're 15. And she would answer, that's the point more. I'm not 13. I'm not 14. I'm 15. Yes, she was 15. And she became infatuated with any dashing, handsome man who visited our flat. I could draw up a list for all the rest of her life. Eleanor was clever in politics, idiotic,